Someone has to be here to keep the show on the rails because it's not going to be Russell or Tony. They're happier off the rails.
I didn't realize there were rails.
Are we having a problem with Patrick's feed? I mean, he's cutting in and out. I don't get it. It just like I only heard part of that.
That's what picking up a serious hiss.
I have been drinking.
So we've kind of done, I don't really have like an official retrospective or anything other than to say, in the 11 years that we've been doing the show, we've changed it up. Tony, by the way, Tony was our first guest on show number 1. It's Danny and I with Tony Schaefer as a special guest, hypermiling expert, Tony Schaefer, and co-founder of was it Chicago Hybrid Group or Chicago Prius Group?
It was originally Chicago Prius Group, and then we wanted to bring in more people and not be so exclusive. So we went to Chicago Hybrid Group.
So, yeah, that was show number 1, 399 shows ago. And aren't you glad we're still not doing that?
And there was a while where Tony had his hyper miler minute in every show. Just one little hyper miling tip.
Wow, Patrick. Nice one.
Wow. Good memory.
And what drives us? Whose idea was the show name?
Tony. Tony named the show.
That was actually.
I don't remember what we were going to call it before that, but we had really bad names, really horrible names.
It was like Russell and Danny can't think of a name for a show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was, we were just lost. And then Tony popped off with that and it was like, Eureka. And it stuck. Now, I haven't had too many people. I'm sorry?
He hasn't been able to get rid of me since.
Oh, Tony. But nobody's told me it's a bad name, which is nice. Because usually I hear when I've named something and it's bad, I like get that feedback right away. Like, who named this? Because this is dumb.
As long as it's not your children saying that to you.
Yeah.
About their names.
So, yeah, I mean, we go back to January 20th, 2010 was our first show. And since then, the changes in just everything have just been crazy. I mean, when we started out, it was a very Prius focused show because it was the Prius, there was the Insight, there was some weird little things like the Corbin Sparrow and some other the home DIY people and a couple of the Ford truck.
Talking about the Chevy Volt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow. We've certainly, I think we've grown with the category, with what's going on. We've kind of broadened it out a little more into sustainable energy, which is good, and mass transit, things like that. Cause it's not, when we started this show, when Danny and I started the show, we both ran Prius websites. Danny's much bigger than mine, way huge. Mine was a tiny little thing, but so we were focused all day, all week on Prius, which was fine. We loved that, but we want to do other stuff and we needed an excuse. And that was what drives us.
Right. If you had called it the Prius Chat Podcast, you would have been kind of locked in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is probably why I think we only did 10 episodes of the Prius Chat Podcast. Because you're kind of locked in. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just talking Priuses.
Yeah. This week in Nerd News.
And
a new bumper sticker. It says,
yeah,
nice Prius. Said nobody ever.
Yeah.
Which I know that would go poorly with the Prius group.
And let me
hard on Priuses, man.
Let me come out of the
I drove a Prius. I'm not hating on the car.
Yeah, let me come out of the closet. In my parking space right now is my much beloved 2008 Prius. So
you just bought one from Boulder Hybrids.
I know.
Do you have the cool Prius said nobody sticker?
No, because I fucking hate that sticker. Okay, I don't understand why anybody would put that on their car. Because I think some Priuses are cool as hell.
Yeah.
I'm the guy who tried for over a year to sell Toyota on the TRD Prius concept, and
that would have been cool.
Toyota was not buying it
because they needed the carbon offsets.
Well, I kind of understand
make it look cool.
The sticker. If you're trying to say being cool is not my objective, I'm about something bigger and more important than that. That kind of rings with me.
You know,
I'll make sure
whole,
your children don't suffocate.
Yeah.
my whole thing was just breaking the Prius out of one mold so that it would be a more broadly appealing vehicle. That was my motivation, was that this is a good platform. We can adapt it to please other buyers. It doesn't have to be the Harmony, you know, singing about trees and
Fancy flowers.
And then you got a fat wagon and a tiny little compact car.
I mean, but hell, I remember going back and, you know, celebrating when the hybrid market was 0.5% of new car sales, you know, and like celebrating and saying, hey, we're 0.5%. Someday we'll be 1% of new car sales. I mean, think about that. I mean, you think of where we are now, you think of EVs setting records, becoming the majority of new car sales in, was it Norway, Sweden?
Yeah.
In 2020. And we were celebrating at 1%. I mean, it's phenomenal. We kept predicting the day that we would be able to say, you know, now we're mainstream, but we never knew when that day would come. And we knew we were basically shouting into the wind in 2010 with our handful of listeners and people who would spend the time, you know, 2 hours sometimes listening to an audio podcast, because we would just talk. And it was really just friends getting together and chatting about hybrid technology, ripping on General Motors for releasing the Ashes to Ashes study.
Dust to
from the
dust,
think
yes.
tank. Yeah, the dust to dust, the whole, you know, and I mean, by God, people actually listen to 2-hour audio podcasts, and it was just us talking. And here we are. I mean, literally 10 years later, and hybrids and EVs are, you know, omnipresent. They're ubiquitous on the roads now, and in a executive order signed by our new United States president, we are back in the Paris Agreement, and electric vehicles, alternative fuel vehicles, plug-in vehicles, hybrid vehicles are going to play a major role moving